I'm gonna laugh my ass off when all these motherfuckers are saying I'm going for 30 years, 20 years, 5 years, 10 years. Bro, I'm telling you, I'm not even gonna do 1 day, bro. They're gonna give me a fine. They're gonna say, don't come back to Korea. You're the one who's gonna look so dumb when I don't get any jail time or anything. Bro, I'm gonna laugh. Like, really? I know for a fact I'm not gonna go to jail. Not 1 day in jail. Look, I did go there and recognize all the charges. I said I was guilty. I did say all this shit because it's just gonna be a fine.
I'm sure at this point you all know what happened to everybody's least favorite IRL streamer, Johnny Somali, and his court sentencing, which I know for a fact that I and many other people are very happy about. You know, popping the champagne and all that. Considering the fact that he is, to put it bluntly, a societal cancer that only serves to make people's lives in other countries miserable, all for some clout that he can't even cash in now. As a matter of fact, his entire online career could be summarized as,
arrogance and stupidity all in the same package. How efficient of you.
But where do I even start with Johnny? From being ground zero of degenerate IRL streamers that harass people in foreign countries and being social parasites, single-handedly setting back Asian-Black relations by 100 years, to doing this terrible shtick in multiple countries such as Japan, Israel, and Korea. He's done so many horrendous and heinous things overseas at this point that if I talked about them all, this video would take hours to finish. In fact, a better question to ask would be, what crime hasn't he committed at this point? In South Korea alone, some of the more well-known actions he has done is get drunk and dump noodles in a convenience store and get pissy when a worker told him to leave, harass people on the buses with loud music, harass people on the street with a bag of fish, which disrupted a bus ride, general public harassment, twerked on a Statue of Peace, aka the Comfort Woman statue, had explicit messages TTS'd in Lotte World where children were present, and the deepfakes he made/distributed of Bonbon and Young Man. All of that is only the tip of the iceberg in South Korea. Imagine all the other stuff he did in other countries in his never-ending quest to be a wannabe GTA protagonist. The truly crazy part about all of Johnny's actions, though, is that even when it predictably gotten him beaten and arrested, he did not stop. Beaten and arrested in Japan. Didn't learn his lesson. Beaten and arrested in Israel. Also didn't learn his lesson. Beaten and arrested in Korea. Didn't seem to learn his lesson till after his April 15th court trial for sentencing. I say seemed to learn his lesson because A, when Johnny was initially arrested in Japan but let off easy, was only a $1,400 fine and a travel ban to Japan, he continued terrorizing foreign countries until Korea put him down. Legally speaking, of course. And B, when Vitaly was arrested in the Philippines for harassing the locals there, including a cop, they let him off early after nearly 300 days of living in his hellish jail cell, and now he's in hot water after defaming some random guy as a pedophile. So you will forgive me if I am skeptical that Korean jail time will actually change Johnny for the better. But enough speculation. Let's go over the April 15th trial that Johnny had. The trial itself was very popular and attracted a wide crowd of people, with roughly 40 people packing the room inside the courthouse, with many of them choosing to stand or sit on the floor to await sentencing. There was also 6 different Korean television cameras from major news outlets waiting to cover the trial, so people were getting posted for Johnny Somali's final sentencing. Johnny showed up to the trial very sad, somber, dead inside, professionally dressed, alone, and on time, which is a far cry from his first Korean trial, where he got super drunk the night before, to the point of vomiting no less.
Giving y'all the first viral moment tonight.
And showed up an hour late wearing a MAGA hat. The trial itself was also very no-nonsense and straightforward. Johnny did get a bit desperate during his court trial, as he lied about being an ASU student despite the fact that he already graduated. I don't know how they do courts down in South Korea, but I'm pretty sure lying in the courts there also has some very serious punishments. After they gave him his sentencing, he immediately got handcuffed and all of his stuff has been yoinked. You can tell that the Koreans are eager to give Johnny his legal cock and ball torture. To make a long story short though, the courts deemed him guilty of all 8 of his charges, even the deepfake ones, despite Johnny not pleading guilty on those. And punishment-wise, he now has to face the following. 6 months of jail time where he will be subject to hard prison labor, must be registered in the Korean Sex Offender Registry for 5 years. This also makes him unable to work in places where children or disabled people are present. 20 days of detention, and finally his phones are permanently confiscated. Personally, I feel kind of mixed on the sentencing, and I know many people online feel the same, mainly in regards to the 6 months of jail time as opposed to the initial 3 years the prosecution wanted in the previous late February trial. The main issue I have with the 6 months is that it's drastically less than the previously proposed 3 years, and if I'm being honest, isn't enough time for Johnny to truly learn his lesson. And I'm surprised if he actually learns his lesson from this because he was let off easy in Japan, and we all know how that went. I understand that oftentimes the initial sentencing is watered down in many cases, but I would have liked it if they at least gave him a year or 2 as a reasonable compromise to still put the hurt on Johnny. The main reasoning for this shorter jail sentence was apparently, while Johnny was very disrespectful to Korea and its people for views and attention, ultimately it was decided in the courts that the stunts he pulled did no lasting harm to anyone involved. Even though Johnny was still deemed guilty with the deepfakes. The fact that Johnny settled with Young Man, please note that this does not drop the relevant deepfake charge associated with Young Man, was a mitigating factor. Finally, even though Johnny only sent 1 letter of apology when normally you would send multiple, I guess it shows enough remorse, but I'm being speculative with the last point. The TLDR is that basically the courts deemed him more as a social nuisance, and all of the serious charges were dampened with apologies and settlements. It's not all bad though, as despite Johnny only being locked up for 6 months, he is still mandated to work hard prison labor, probably something to do with manufacturing, like making license plates is my best guess. As it was very specific that he worked penal labor, which in Korea involves mandatory prison work, 8 hours a day for 5 to 6 days a week. So they are still making him put the work in. Who knows, maybe hard work will make a man out of him. One can hope. In addition, the prosecution also has a 1-week window where they can appeal the ruling, so there is still a slight chance that Johnny may have to spend a bit more time doing hard prison labor. It's double-sided though, so Johnny can also appeal for a lighter sentence, but I don't think the court is going to budge. Especially considering how he live-streamed his crimes in 4K Ultra Dolby HD digital, and how he trashed on the courts before. That and the fact that everyone there hates him. Also, he already got a reduced sentence than what was initially proposed, so he has no reason to reappeal. The prosecution, on the other hand, has every reason to appeal, as Johnny has evaded a lot of the punishment that he was rightfully supposed to get. As a matter of fact, the lawyer for the deepfake victim, Bonbon, has sent out a petition to the prosecutor's office for an appeal. The lawyer basically said that the claim that Johnny did no lasting harm is false, as just because Bonbon did not show emotion, it doesn't mean she felt no shame from the deepfakes being shown of her. And it would spread a bad precedent that anyone on trial would have to express visible suffering in order to show lasting harm. So far, Bonbon is the only person who has tried to appeal to the prosecutor's office to appeal for extra jail time, but I hope this opens up the floodgates for other people to appeal for Johnny to have a longer sentence. Also, if the prosecutors can appeal for a longer sentence, it will take 4 to 6 months for the courts to determine if the higher sentence is valid, and Johnny will be detained in Korea for the whole time while this is ongoing. So even if the appeal doesn't go through, Johnny doesn't get off scot-free in Korea, as he still has to stay an additional 4 to 6 months in addition to his 6 months of prison labor jail time. But, speaking of drop punishments, there is also zero mention of the 150,000 Korean won fine they proposed in a late February trial. But I'm not too worried about that since it only amounts to roughly $100, which is chump change in the grand scheme of things. To give some credit to the South Korean court system though, they did not drop the ball in regards to Johnny being registered on a sex offender registry, which I'm not surprised on considering how deepfakes are very illegal in South Korea. He gets the same exact sentence as previously recommended for this, which is great considering that it also comes with the additional caveat of being banned from working in places that feature children or disabled people. I mean, he was already unemployable with that internet footprint of his, so this is just salt on the wound. But him being a registered sex offender in South Korea does mean that if he is deported / returns back to the US, he will also have to register there in the US or face up to 10 years in prison for non-compliance. since they will honor the SO registry in another country if their reasoning for putting you on there is valid, so the sex offender registry will also have lasting consequences back in the States. It is a good thing that he's legally banned from working around children though, considering some of the insanely pedophilic things that he's said during his live streams. From talking with a 16-year-old sexually, trying to hit her up, lying and saying that he's also 16.
I'm a minor.
I'm a minor too.
You're what?
Same.
Ah, you're a minor. Seriously.
What is that tongue flick? I feel virtually molested through the computer screen. Another instance of him, best case, just being creepy with minors was him trying to out-riz a 16-year-old. One more case was in Israel, where he was flirting with two 16-year-olds and said that he was like Diddy, R. Kelly, and Epstein, and that he was willing to go to jail for them.
How old am I?
Yeah.
Yes.
How old are you?
Yes.
14.
You're right, yeah.
So smart. And I'm too young for you, I guess.
How old are you?
I'm 16.
It's legal here in Israel. Take my Instagram.
He wants your Instagram.
How old are you?
I'm 16.
I'll take both of you. I don't give a fuck. I'll go to jail. I go to jail. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. It's serious. I'll take both of them. I got wife number 1 and wife number 2. I'm like P. Diddy. I'm like Epstein. I'm like R. Kelly. I don't care. For her, I go to prison. Age ain't nothing but a number.
You nasty ass bastard! You fucking nasty ass motherfucker! That's nasty, man!
Yeah, that's really great, man. Anything for the clip, I guess. If Johnny Somali isn't a pedophile, he's doing a really poor job at convincing us otherwise, especially when he actually talks sexual to real minors. Even in Korea, Johnny had issues with exposing minors to sexually charged content, as he was in Lotte World and his CTS blasted out some very profane content in front of minors.
아이들과 섹스하고 싶다 나는 아이들과 섹스하고 싶다 나는 아이들과 섹스하고 싶다 아이들과 섹스하고 싶다 나는
While one could make the argument that it technically wasn't Johnny's fault, and instead some deranged donator's fault for TTSing that vile message, at this point Johnny should know what type of audience he has, especially when disrespectful TTS messages were previously blasted during his Japan arc. There's of course the additional 20-day detention period where he's just kept under watch, which can occur before, during, or after the 6 months of imprisonment. I'm split between South Korea wanting him to suffer and locking him up for as long as possible inside their borders, to them kicking him out as soon as possible, which does tie into a potential travel ban from South Korea for good old Johnny Boy. He of course also had his phones confiscated, but he's got bigger things to worry about at this point, like surviving at least 6 months of jail with hard labor when there's no doubt some of the prisoners there want their get back against Johnny for trashing on their culture and people. I just find it really funny how different Johnny was acting compared to before and after his April trial. The difference between when he first experienced Korean court versus now is clear as night and day. Going back all the way to even before his first trial, he was arrogant and cocky, and that's putting it lightly. I mean, he had a blast antagonizing the South Korean people. And even when they started beating him up publicly, nothing changed his tune whatsoever. They called him the Golden Goose because they would put bounties on his head to find out where he was streaming. He was so hated that people were putting out IRL hits to beat him up, and that didn't even faze him. Even when they initially jailed him, he was still super cocky, getting drunk to the point of vomiting the night before his trial and showing up an hour late in a MAGA hat. Great first legal impression people will have of you that really sets the tone for the future. Even while Johnny was undergoing his court trials, he continued to cause trouble, adding fuel to the legal fires by either continuing to harass people publicly while live streaming it and making inflammatory political remarks, to name a few. He also decided to act hard and trash talk the judge, making many offensive and disparaging remarks towards the judge and South Korean court by extension. Some gems include Johnny talking about making the judge suck his dick on soft.
Fuck the judge, fuck the prosecutor, y'all can suck my dick, bitch ass niggas.
Yeah.
Suck my dick on soft. Tell them what the charges is. Fucking carrying a fish, tell them.
Carrying a fish and causing anxiety.
Causing anxiety by carrying a fish. Tell the judge you can suck my dick. I'll bring a fish to your mother's house, bitch.
Although, based on the April 15th trial, sounds like Johnny had to suck the judge's dick on soft. There's of course the iconic Johnny Somali bragging about how he's not going to get any jail time whatsoever.
I know for a fact I'm not going to go to jail. Not one day in jail. I'm going to laugh my ass off when all these motherfuckers are saying I'm going for 30 years, 20 years, 5 years, 10 years. Bro, I'm telling you, I'm not even going to do one day, bro. They're going to give me a fine. They're going to say, don't come back to Korea.
Ironic and age like milk. And peeking on the trash talk by making fun of the judge's accent and calling them a racial slur for Koreans.
You can speak English. Nigga,
the nigga told me, what's the address, nigga? I'm like, nigga, I don't know how to tell you, nigga. How do I say ching chong, ching ching ching? How can I say that to you? I don't speak your language.
Essentially, he got in trouble for, number one, wearing the hat.
I didn't get in trouble. I don't speak Korean. The nigga said take the hat off. I don't know what these gook ass niggas said. Nigga said take the hat off. I don't know what the fuck.
Deep down, I think Johnny secretly wanted jail time because he knew it would make him better. But he was too afraid of asking directly, so he acted all sneaky about it and inflamed the judge in court so that he was guaranteed jail time. In all seriousness though, comparing his arrogant, cocky self to his current self on April 15th, and it is clear that the defiance has been completely snuffed out of him, at least for now. When he went in for his April trial, it was a whole different story. Reports from other people who were present for the trial showed that he was very depressed and miserable during his trial, with none of the usual bravado. All alone, no trolling, completely dead inside. Come on, man. What happened to calling the judge a G-ass-N? I thought you wanted to be an agent of chaos. A bastion of evil, if you will. Hashtag fake demons, SMH.
If y'all want chaos, let me be your conduit. Let me be your bastion of the evil.
I just can't get over the fact they had two different countries to correct his behavior and learn from. But even when he was in Korea, he still caused so much trouble that the courts were able to rack up 8 charges against him. Those 8 charges being causing a disruption in a convenience store after drinking and eating ramen, when he made a mess by pouring the noodles out on the floor and getting aggressive when workers told him to chill, the Lotte World disruption where he TTS vile messages as well as being a general nuisance there, disrupted a city bus, subway metro, and the public in general by being loud and inflammatory, harassed people with rotting fish on the streets and a bus, and of course the deepfakes he made / shared of Bon Bon and Young Man. The truly tragic part for everyone, but mostly Johnny, is how avoidable all of this could have been. All he had to do was simply not shit-talk people in their own countries, not act disrespectful to them, not disrespect their cultures, and he would have been fine. But no, apparently the hate clout was too good to pass up. Even when people would go in hard on him, resulting in him being beaten and arrested in multiple countries, nothing made him change till Korea. You would think the first time you've been beaten or arrested in Japan, it would immediately cause you to wise up and learn the obvious fact that antagonizing people in their own countries for views isn't a good idea. But nope, he's in a hell of his own making now. Apparently that simple concept was too hard for Johnny to grasp till Korea. Now he's stuck there doing prison labor for a good while in a place where everyone hates him, and if he ever returns back to the US, he has to register there as a sex offender. He should have taken his dad's advice of being an office worker. It may have been boring, but at least he wouldn't have been jailed and put on a sex offender registry in a foreign country. I hope the prosecution appeals Johnny's sentence and he gets at least a year of jail time instead of 6 months. The last important update I wanted to cover though, for those of you who don't know who Hank is the Confederate Asian dude from this viral image a while back, but he was more recently known as Johnny's butt buddy in South Korea, providing Johnny with shelter and money for living / legal fees. To make a long story short, Johnny and Hank had a falling out and now Hank wants his money back. So now Hank is preparing a civil suit for 50 grand in order to achieve this goal. Honestly though, it's a shame that both of them can't lose, because Hank palling around with Johnny did enable a lot of Johnny's degeneracy in South Korea. I also view Hank's current plight as Darwinism in play, as what do you mean giving money to a deadbeat loser wouldn't have yielded any productive results? I for one am completely shocked. You were probably better off burning that money instead of dumping it into some loser black hole. Alright, that's all I have to say. See ya.